Morning, Don.
Morning, Maurice. How are you doing?
Okay. One-handed.
Well, which one?
Left.
Well, that's not good.
No, especially if you're right-handed. Even using the
Well,
mouth is a challenge.
I know how you feel. I'm one-footed at the moment.
You're one-footed?
Yeah,
What happened?
I broke my foot last week
Oh
on the way to
no.
work. Yeah,
How did you do that?
I fell on an escalator.
That's okay. I fell off my bike, which is why I had to have the rotator cuff surgery. So,
Yeah,
and
it's
while I was standing still on the bike. So it's
it's a
embarrassing.
tough.
And of course, when you're in the hospital, everybody's like, well, how did it happen? You got to tell that same story over and over again.
Yeah, I know. I feel stupid already.
Are you in a cast or?
I was in a cast for a week, and now I'm in a walking boot. Um,
Well, you
so
can't make it to the office either.
no, not yet. I got to figure out how to do that, but I can't. I can't do. I don't think I can do public transportation on this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to be able to drive for maybe another 6 weeks yet because
Yeah,
I've got this sling on. I'm wearing it for definitely 4 more weeks and probably a few more weeks after that. So you can't really drive one armed.
yeah. I mean, I could drive, but I don't have a car.
Right.
Um, and I'm
Well,
gonna have this
depending on which
boot.
foot it is.
Yeah, it's my left foot.
Oh, well, yeah, then you
Um,
could drive really.
and
Unless you unless you had a stick, then you couldn't.
yeah, right, right. Well, I'm going to have this for the next 6 weeks.
Ugh. Not fun.
No, I didn't plan on this.
I think I'd rather have the foot than the arm, though. The arm is really debilitating. You can't believe how many things are so hard to do with the other arm.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I was on crutches last week and just like trying to wash my hands or brush my teeth
Right,
was an
right,
ordeal.
right. Yeah, I couldn't wash my hands for the first like 2 weeks because I couldn't really use my other arm. And think about it. Well, how do you wash your hands? By rubbing your hands together. Well, you can't rub your hands together. How do you wash your hands? I mean, it's basic stuff with brushing your teeth, all that stuff. It's
Yeah, it's tough. Um, it's been 2 weeks since I've taken a shower.
yeah, I had to go. I didn't go that long, but I have to have help in the shower. I can't take a shower by myself right now.
Hmm. You can hear me and see me okay?
Yep.
I can't.
Oh, good.
Hey Don, it's Tom Viter. Just
Hey
looking.
Tom, how are you?
Good. Just happy this worked.
Thanks for the updated presentation. I think we're all set for this morning.
Okay, good.
I'll be right back, Don. I'm gonna grab a cup of coffee.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Put in the furniture budget. Yeah. Yeah.
sitting in the second chin.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, good. We're on.
Julie, we have a quorum. I don't know if Director Collier will be here, but I think you can go ahead and read the preamble at any time.
Okay, then let's get started. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law, under COVID-19 emergency declarations, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during this meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raised hand function before asking a question or making a comment. The raised hand function can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile versions at the bottom of the screen and activated by clicking on the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking the raise hand function again and muting your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located at the bottom of the WebEx screen. All meeting activities have been recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. We have provided a link to the meeting to those who wish to speak on a particular case via our website and email. We have also received emails from those who have provided written comments on a particular matter, and those will be recorded for in the record. We'd like to call the February 11th, 2021 Landmarks Commission meeting to order. Mr. Pettit, please call roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Anderson,
Here.
Ms. Bailey,
Here.
Mr. Colicchio,
Here,
Mr. Collier, Mr. Santora, Mr. Dryder,
Here.
Mr. Jones, Mr. Strickland,
Here.
Mr. Tarasic,
Here.
Ms. Trott, Ms. Trott,
Here. I think I answered when somebody coughed.
thank you. I would also point out that Carl Brunges and Ava Schmidt from our staff are also in attendance. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Excellent. Well, it's nice to see everyone today, even if it continues to be virtually. To be respectful of the presenter, if you are not presenting, please mute your connections, both on phone and computer, so that we can give the full attention to the presenter. We'll start with our certificates of appropriateness. We'd like to ask the first participant to use the raise hand function so we can recognize you, and then unmute your microphone and tell us about your project. The first project is the Baricelli Inn located at 2203 Cornell Road.
Madam Chair, we have Kristen Martinez.
Welcome, Ms. Martinez.
Kristen Martinez with LDA Architects. I'll be presenting the Washington Inn Suites. The project is located on the corner of Cornell Road and Murray Hill Road. Previous use was a restaurant and hotel. The proposal that we're going to see today is for 12 apartment units. Next slide, please. These are some aerial views of the existing and the proposed. The existing includes the 1890s Baricelli house with a 1984 addition that sort of encircles the building in a C shape on the back there. Almost the entire work that we're proposing is being done with the exterior of the 1984 portion. The only work that we're doing on the historic portion would be the replacement of one door, which you'll see when we get to the elevations. This project was presented to Little Italy's design review this past Tuesday and was approved by them. Next slide, please. Site plan, we're pretty much keeping what's existing on the site. Parking will remain to the plan east. We are adding a small landscape buffer between the parking and the adjacent house at 2160 Murray Hill Road. So some planting to buffer that from the parking. There's also an existing fence that's along that property line. It's in pretty bad disrepair, so we'll be replacing that as well. So that will act as a buffer as well. Next slide, please. Demolition plans, these are pretty much the same as what you guys saw the last time. The existing second and third floors were the previous hotel suites. Those will be remaining mostly as is, with the addition of some small kitchens and laundry areas where we're able to add them. Most of the work is focused on the first floor, adding in the 5 new apartment units. Next slide, please. Basement plan, this is unchanged from what you guys saw at our last landmarks presentation. Next slide, please. First floor, one of the big comments from the last presentation was keeping the existing porches that face Murray Hill and Cornell as is. So to do that, we've eliminated one unit so we can maintain the porches. We're leaving the glazing and the storefront as is. You'll still have that transparency between what you're seeing on the street and that stone wall of the historic building behind. And we think this is a better balance of keeping the exterior looking the way it is, respecting the historic, but also lets us respect the historic interior as well, especially the rooms that face Cornell and Murray Hill. So next slide, please. Second floor, the only change from the last presentation is we've enlarged the sliding patio door planned south to get a little more glazing in. This was one of the comments that we picked up from Little Italy's design review. We are removing the majority of the existing 1984 skylight. We're infilling this with the little common area and adding a roof deck on top. Next slide, please. Third floor is unchanged from what you guys saw last time. We're adding kitchens in these 3 units and laundry. Any units that don't have laundry located within them in this design, they'll have a separate laundry room provided for them in the basement of the building. Next slide, please. Roof plan, this just shows we're keeping the existing roof that's over the skylight, demolishing that portion of the skylight and adding in our roof deck area. Next slide, please. Exterior windows, we are adding a couple of punched openings on the 1984 portion of the building. These face Cornell Road in one instance, and the rest face the adjacent apartment building, which is under the same ownership as this building. So we're doing double hung windows on these that you'll see in the elevations. These will match the existing double hung that's on the historic portion of the building. We'll be doing a Pella fiberglass bronze colored window. It'll match what's existing out there. New storefront that we're adding at the existing entry will match what's out there as well. Bronze. Sliding patio doors on the common area. Next slide, please. This is the elevation that you'll see from the parking lot. The modifications that we're making here using the 1984 skylight gets partially demolished. We're adding that common area. Material for this will be stucco, which will match the existing stucco of the 1984 portion. Will match the same color and texture. You'll see the Pella fiberglass sliding patio doors up there. Those will be in that bronze color again. Adding some sconce lighting up there. The one comment that we did pick up from design review as well was that instead of seeing a glass railing at the roof deck, they wanted to see a metal railing. So we're showing a dark metal, it'll be again that bronze color. This will be mounted to the back face of that partial height wall, just a thin vertical picket. And then you'll see the modifications to the storefront entry below, removing that curved bulkhead from the 1984 portion, just brightening it up, bringing some more light into the building. Next slide, please. This is the side that faces Murray Hill. So again, you'll see the common area deck to the right side. We are modifying that one door that's in the portion of the enclosed porch. We're leaving the glazing as is on the building porches, as well as the 1984 edition. That storefront will remain as is. We are replacing that one door. It's a pretty industrial looking door right now. We just want to pick something that's going to give it a little more of a residential feel. Next slide, please. This is the elevation that faces Cornell Road. Again, we're leaving the existing enclosed porch alone. The storefront and the glazing stay as is. You will see there's a punched opening in the back on the 1984 portion. Those will be those double hung windows to match the existing windows. Next slide, please. This is our elevation that faces the new apartment building. So a few punched openings with the double hung windows in the 1984 portion. You'll see a portion of the existing skylight that's going to remain. That'll bring light into the atrium and give us the clearance over our stairs. Again, that addition to the common area space where we're taking out the skylight, that'll be the same stucco that's wrapping the 1984 portion of the building. Next slide, please. The next few slides are sections. We can get into those as needed as we get into the discussion, but at this point, we turn it back over to the commission.
Thank you. Do we have feedback from the local committee?
Madam Chair, I think Ray Christosic is in attendance on the phone. If not, I can report that I was at the Design Review Committee meeting on Tuesday. They approved this unanimously. Well, I don't know if it was unanimous, but it was approved with as presented. I think the applicants addressed all the major concerns of the committee and the commission from the last meeting. So it was approved by Little Italy Design Review.
Excellent, thank you. And did I see we have a councilman in attendance with us?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I know that this is the Little Italy Redevelopment Corporation approved it. I support their recommendation, and I also approve. And I know that this is not the probably not the venue, but I do want to make sure that this committee knows that the residents of that area are getting more and more concerned, and there's growing concern about the plethora of apartment buildings. But I know that this is not this committee's responsibility, but I do want to make sure that I let this committee know that the residents are growing more and more concerned about the plethora of these historical buildings being redone and possibly not within the fabric of the neighborhood. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say that as a representative of the Little Italy community. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other people in attendance from to speak on behalf of the project? Okay.
We do have Adrienne Bailey with her hand raised.
All right, then we'll move on to feedback from the commission. Go ahead, Ms. Bailey. You're muted, I believe.
I would like to thank Ms. Martinez for listening to the recommendation. I like what's presented. I just only have a few questions, just material-wise from the existing to the new. As far as the existing finish, is all the stones for the whole entire structures being replaced with stucco, or is some of the stones is being remained and just the new structures being replaced with stucco? That's what I'm trying to get an understanding.
Okay. We are not touching any of the existing stone. Existing stone will stay as is.
All right, because I'm looking at your presentation. All right, so
Yeah, just the new addition on the atrium infill, that would be the stucco.
All right, okay. I'm just looking at your presentation. I'm just not seeing some of the stones showing on your presentation for your proposal. That's fine. For your and you did answer some of my questions for the common space and especially for the railing. Now, is this going to be, the common space is going to be acting as a patio where individuals walk out? Are you going to have seating in the roof area, or the common space seating is going to be inside the new structure?
A little bit of both. You'll see there's a little bit of a patio area on the second level, as well as we'll have some seating inside.
So we'll be seating on the exterior as well.
Yeah, I would imagine there'd be a little bit of furniture out there.
Okay, what type of flooring that's going to be used inside the structure? I'm just curious of what type of flooring material you're using.
Inside the space, or the roof deck?
Inside the space as well as the roof deckers too.
Oh, for the lobby area, it's going to be a tile. When we get into the residential spaces, it's going to be a carpet.
Okay.
It's existing carpet right now inside.
Okay. All right. And what type of material for the flat portion of the roof? Is it completely fresh? I know it's pitching, so the water.
Yeah, it'll be pitched to some interior roof trades. We'll be doing a TPO membrane roof. The existing 1984 edition has a dark black TPO membrane roof on it, and then the roof deck on top of that will be like a composite decking, like a Trex.
And what color you're going to be using? You had a material you lift up quick now for the railing.
Yeah, this will be the railing in the storefront, the storefront.
Okay.
The roof deck won't be able to be seen from the street. I imagine we'll do another dark color. This will be the windows. This is the Pella fiberglass window.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. I like your design. I appreciate you keeping the existing condition as is. Thank you very much.
Looks like Miss Anderson was next with her hand raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I understand there is a high demand for rental housing in this area. There always has been. And I think because of the institutions nearby, that will continue to be the case. I'm not enthusiastic about cutting up, you know, a stately, elegant mansion basically into 12 units. You know, I understand the demand. It's just, we've had a history of doing that in the city. We certainly cut up a lot of houses in the Ohio City, Detroit Shoreway, Huff, you know, and probably a lot of that exacerbated the decline of some of those communities. You know, that said, in this area, I don't think these apartments are going to not be desirable, but you know, I don't applaud it. Again, I'll support it, but somewhat reluctantly.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Other questions or comments from the commission? Mr. Strickland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only question that I had was the fence on the eastern boundary of the project with the adjacent neighbor. Will that be replaced in kind, or will the fence material be different from what's existing?
It'll be different from what's existing. The existing fence is like a cedar board-on-board style fence. This will be like a green screen fence that'll allow some vegetation to grow up, but this is similar to what we're using next door on the apartment building.
And what's the height of that fence?
I think we're showing 5 feet or so.
Okay, so it'll take some time before the plantings mature and...
It will. We're also showing some evergreen planting along that fence as well, so they'll sort of be roughly the same height, I would imagine.
All right. Has that been previewed with the neighbor? Do you know reaction to that replacement?
The neighbor's actually under the same ownership group as this building.
Oh, that's right. Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments from the commission? I don't see any hands up. Oh,
Adrian again?
Miss Bailey?
I was gonna make a motion.
Okay, go ahead, and then I'll make my comments in the next portion.
Do you want to make the comment, then I'll make the motion?
Sure. No, I mean, I just also wanted to say that I appreciate the ownership and the design firm listening to our feedback. You know, I think it is I think we're all saddened that we're losing this for, a more public use, but appreciate trying to maintain, at least from the exterior, the original or the current look and feel of the establishment. And those are all my comments. So go ahead, Ms. Bailey.
I would like to make the motion to accept the presentation as presented. I would like the architect to give to staff more information on the material, on the common space for the roof, the window information as far as the color and the materials, especially for the fence, and as well as the ground fence. And could you give the color, even though the vegetation is not going to be on yet, it's going to grow in the fish. I'm assuming it's going to be some color on it before the vegetation is on it. So share what color it's going to be, or the final color with the staff. So that's what I have for now.
Okay. We have the motion on the basis of submitting additional information. Do we have a second?
Bob Strickland, I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No? Mr. President, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchio,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Thank you. We look forward to seeing the progress.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our second applicant, located at 500 West St. Clair Avenue, Waring Block. Storefront and entrance renovation for Aqua de Lucia Restaurant. Could the applicant please use the raise hand function and unmute yourself and tell us about your project?
This is Bob Bako with HSB Architects. How is everybody doing this morning? Hopefully fine.
Good,
we were
thank you.
back. We were in front of Landmarks probably a month or so ago to present the exterior steel and glass canopy, which we received approval on. Now we're back in front of you today after a meeting and discussion with Tom Sterinsky in the Warehouse District. We're looking now to renovate a couple of storefronts, three storefronts along the West 6th and St. Clair facades. And if you want to flip to the next slide, please. It might be hard to see here, but there's three entrances. Well, there's multiple entrances to the restaurant. Again, Luca is a restaurant that's occupying the old XO Steak restaurant space at the northeast corner of West 6th and St. Clair. As you know, going through the process of renovating the building, the owners inherited a building and space in somewhat disrepair. And part of it was renovating some of the interior floor joist systems and flooring throughout the space, and then capturing some space and repairing areas that we think are in need of it. And part of that process involved a couple of three entryways that we're looking to renovate. In the upper left, there's a service corridor, as you can see on the plan, that exits out into West 6th. Directly below that, there was a recessed doorway that was entered into the back of the restaurant that also had a alcove in it that was accumulating a lot of just miscellaneous storage. That's one area. And then on the St. Clair side, there are two entrances along that facade. One is to the right of that plan, is where we are renovating for the new entry to the restaurant. And then there's to the left of that where we're going to remove the entry doors and install new storefront. In all three of those scenarios, we're looking to push the storefront out flush with the facade of the building and stitch in a new storefront glass and door system that hopefully shows to be seamless with what the existing facade looks like. So if you flip to the next slide. The three areas specifically that I'm referencing, the first pair of photographs on the upper row, the left side's the existing condition. That left side, that left door that's somewhat clipped off is the existing service door that's going to remain, will actually be replaced with a new door. To the right of that, you can see how these are the double doors that we're planning to remove and push that storefront out flush to the existing storefront and replicate the existing glass pane that's directly to the left of it. And all three of these photos on the right column, these are new photographs, obviously photoshopped, but we are going to be painting the entire storefront system black, just so that you can keep that in mind as you're going through these. So that's the first set. That's the first set of doors that we're removing and planning on pushing out flush. The second row is the doorway along St. Clair. That's going to be pushed out, removed and pushed out flush. Again, as you can see on the right photograph, that there'll be 3 panes of glass there. And the bottom photograph is the new entry doors to the restaurant. The left is the existing condition. The right one is the door and glass pushed out flush with the storefront. So we've presented this obviously to the warehouse district. We received approval. So now we're coming to you and to make sure that we're okay to proceed. Questions?
Excellent, thank you. Questions or I'm sorry, do we have feedback from the local design review committee?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Tom Stransky from Historic Downtown Cleveland Design Review Committee. We reviewed this like Mr. Bako said, and we've approved it. We're comfortable with the changes, especially since where they are making changes to the storefront, they're actually using wood to match the existing. And then there's a lot of discussion about the glass bulkhead. We appreciate their work in doing that to bring that element, continue to keep that element into the storefront. So I think this is a nice addition to the elements, the canopy and the elements that you've already reviewed and approved. And then we're also continuing to work with them on signage that we hope to be back to you guys soon with. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Questions or comments from the commission? Maurice, I don't see any raised hands. So
No, I don't see anybody either.
Okay, any questions or comments from the commission? Well, I guess I will start with mine then.
Well, now we have Mr. Strickland and Mr. Pettit. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll finish mine right now. Is that I appreciate the sensitivity to the design of the storefronts. The glass bulkhead was the first thing that I noticed, and really appreciate that you're maintaining it and restoring it in areas where you're replacing doors. So that was my feedback. Mr. Strickland, I believe you were next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I thought that certainly the commission needed to provide some comments to the applicant, and I would applaud them in their efforts to basically replicate the storefront details that exist presently with these modifications. So I applaud them with the attention to detail for the modification to the storefront.
Thank you. Mr. Strickland, Mr. Pettit, I believe you're next.
Thank you. Just a quick question for Tom. In your minutes, it seems to imply that the issue of the bulkhead glass is still to be determined. Is that the case, or have you resolved that?
Oh, I apologize. We did meet on site with architect Mr. Bako and Panzika. Jeff, I think, is on this call, and went over it. We have a strategy. it'll be resolved one way or the other. What they were going to do is go and identify sources of new wire glass, and we were going to circle back and compare them with the existing, because the existing wire glass, there's a bit of a hodgepodge going there. And so we definitely want to keep the historic fabric, but we're concerned with how it will look in a situation where you have existing glass fabric next to a new section, and it actually looking worse than it being able to clean up the existing stuff. So that's unresolved. It'll either be new wire glass or a combination thereof. But keeping the integrity of the look. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah,
Fair
that
assessment,
helps.
Jeff and Bob.
Other
Was it-
questions or comments?
I asked if I stated that clearly.
Yeah,
to
that
you
sounds
and Jeff.
right. Yeah.
I would just ask that once you make that determination to share it with staff.
Most definitely.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the commission? Ms. Anderson, or is that Giancarlo?
I think it's Giancarlo.
Go ahead, Giancarlo.
Yes, good morning, everyone. There were some issues at the last meeting regarding the canopies. Was that all resolved to everybody's satisfaction?
My recollection is the commission approved the canopy.
Yeah. So
They were, okay, all right, thank you.
Is that correct? I don't want to speak for you, but that's my recollection.
That's correct. It was approved. As far as I can tell, it was approved as presented with no conditions. It's also based on the revisions that we agreed to for the warehouse district design guidelines. So it was approved as presented.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Strickland has his hand raised.
Madam Chair, if it's appropriate at this time, I would move to approve the storefront modifications for this project as presented, with the stipulation that the final selection of the wire glass be submitted to staff for record.
Thank you. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second.
Excellent. We have a second. Any further discussion? No? Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes,
Mr. Kalikia,
Yes,
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Thank you. Look forward to seeing the project progress.
Thank you,
The
everyone.
Project progress.
Thank.
We move on to our third applicant, security upgrades at 1455 East 6th Street. Could the applicant please use the raise hand function and announce yourself and tell us about your project?
Morning, everybody. My name is Tom Viter. I'm the manager of planning and design at the Federal Reserve Bank. We're here to present a project for the replacement of a current single officer post with a larger 3-officer post along Rockwell Avenue. And
The
basically
moderator
the-
will control your know when you would like him to advance.
Okay. Yeah, so this is just the opening slide. This shows the scope of the area that we're working in, where we're replacing the post that you see to the left. And the new post will be going where the door is now. You can go to the next slide. Again, just showing where we are located to the south of the City Hall, and the project's on Rockwell Avenue, basically in front of the link portion of the original building between the main building and the annex facing Rockwell. Go to the next slide. And this gives you an idea of the functionality of that, the facades along Rockwell. The photo to the left shows the existing single post that is going to remain. That officer basically greets people coming to the bank. The first two bays are entries to the parking garage for some staff and a few visitors. The other 5 bays are for cash deliveries, and then beyond that, in the second photo, you can see the large delivery bay that brings products, construction things, supplies, whatnot, into that delivery court. And you can see that's the single person post that we'd like to replace with a larger 3-person post. Basically, between October and February, the bank, these bays are heavily used. There's lots of cash coming in and out of the bank, and October through February is probably the worst time somebody wants to be outside in Cleveland. Sometimes we need 3 to 4 or 5 officers processing vehicles, screening them, putting mirrors underneath to see if there's no devices that could compromise the security of the bank. So that's the main reason that we're looking to put a larger post out there, is to provide a secure and safe and dry space for these officers to be able to do their work. You can go to the next slide. And this is the scope of work area. You can see the post being removed and the location where the new post would be. When I originally came to the bank about a year ago, the plan was to actually remove the historic Watchman's Tower and allow for this new post to go there. The bank thinking that they shouldn't encroach into the street. As you can see, the photograph to the right is a 3-person post that we did in Cincinnati about 2 years ago. The city granted us an encroachment into the street for a security lane in that instance. Just rethinking the project, looked at the possibility of encroaching out into the striped off area that's already non-used. It's not a traffic lane. With the help of the city staff, we're able to get granted an encroachment for this curb extension that goes out 7 feet. And then that allowed us to proceed with putting the post outside of the door and not touch any of the historic fabric. Go to the next slide. And this just shows you the demolition plan. We're taking out existing concrete, about 60 feet of granite curb, and several bollards that we're going to be trying to reuse the covers for. And then we'll need to excavate out into the street for the curb bump out. Go to the next slide. And this just shows the position of the officer post is centered on the entry. We're allowing 6 feet clear between the entry and the officer post. The intention, this is not intended to be a delivery door. It's just for the officers and staff or contractors that are coming in. We're actually looking to upgrade this entry for potential future use as a second entrance in addition to Superior, especially because of COVID, so that everyone's not entering into one spot. Go to the next slide. And there was a comment in the design review about why we weren't taking the entire lane, the striped off lane. I know that our security team was concerned that we were blocking this lane because it allows for some flexibility for vehicles. So we were trying to keep that bump out to a minimum to allow for flexibility in the future. You know, we'd rather have that flexibility than the extended sidewalk. Next slide. And there's also actually a 42-inch water main we're trying to avoid. And this just shows you the curb detail. The intent is to do new concrete in the 2x2 grid to match the existing sidewalk, and then new granite or salvage granite for the curbs. Next slide. And then the next one is the bollard detail. The bollard, you know, they have to be quite sturdy for security purposes. So the footers are going down 5 feet. And then this just shows the how we'll be reusing the collars and also buying new to match. Next slide. Just section and elevation shows you the relationship of this pre-manufactured booth with the building. We're actually, you saw the post that is remaining, we're matching that architecture. Again, these come pre-manufactured. The booth is a bullet resistant 4 rating, which is the highest. So then you can go to the next slide. And so this just shows you the only place we're touching the building is in the bronze panel infill, anodized bronze panel infill that was done in the 90s as part of the renovation. So this canopy, it's a 6x6 foot canopy that's connecting the pre-manufactured booth with the building. This is just to give officers some cover when they're going in and out of the building. The design review had asked us about how that would be drained. We're pitching it back to the booth. We're not expecting a lot of water to collect on that. And then there's a drain to the back of the booth that would be connected to the storm sewer. Go to the next slide. This is just the shop drawing from the Cincinnati post, the 8x12, just to give you an idea of the dimensions and how it's fit out. Our post will have the double parapet, if you will, detail to match the one we have. And per the design review comments last week, we're going to be going with a horizontal banding that I'll show you in a rendering to kind of tie in with the existing building. Go to the next slide. And then just some renderings that show you how the relationship of the new post with the building. This is what we showed design review, and then we revised those. You can go to the next slide. To provide a banding detail. Now we're basically applying additional metal to the pre-manufactured post so that we're not compromising the bullet resistance, but it'll give it a relief and actually a little more of a heft at the base. We hope that this is acceptable from a design review comment standpoint. And I think next slide. That's it. That's all I have. Open to questions.
All right, thank you very much. And feedback from the local committee.
Madam Chair, this was reviewed and approved by the Downtown Flats Design Review Committee on February 4th. They did have some conditions, some of which I believe were addressed by Mr. Revider this morning. The conditions were that they study extending out the new curbing to provide more pedestrian space if allowable, detail the roof drain system and ensure that rainwater is managed appropriately, provide details and design elements on the guard station which make it feel more contextually appropriate to the adjacent historic building, either in contrast or similarity. design of the guardhouse should complement the new entry, and the design needs to be further explored as to how to better achieve this. It was approved unanimously with one abstention.
Thank you. We'll open up the floor then to the commission. Questions or comments from the commission? Mr. Tarasik?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Can we go back to the very first slide, please? I think that's the one. We'll back up for a second. I guess I want to see the one that is being removed, just to get some perspective. That might be on the previous slide. Yeah, right there, right there. I'm trying to get some perspective here. The one, and I walk by there every day, and quite frankly, now that I see these pictures, I'm embarrassed to say that I'm losing my perspective on it. That is not the one that's being removed is not the very, very first post as you are heading west on Rockwell. That's the second one. Is that correct?
Yes, the one that you see by the planter is remaining. The one in the lower right-hand photo is the one that.
Right. Okay, so the one on the upper right-hand, the upper left-hand corner, that's the very, very first post. That's going to remain.
Correct. Yeah, we only need a single person to basically greet people and then tell people that, you know.
Okay. Yeah, that was my question. My question. I'm sorry. I was under the impression that was the one that was going to be removed, and then I was curious as to how that traffic flow, because I believe that's where traffic that goes in and comes out. That's where they stop at that point in time. Exactly. So that one's going. That's going to remain. It's the other one, and I guess I realized it when I saw the overhead. I'll call it an atrium, that glass atrium there, that's a little further down the building. Okay, thank you for putting that perspective for me. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Ms. Bailey, I believe your hand was up next.
The comment on expanding the pedestrian space, I don't see no need to it because we have the opposite side of the street for pedestrian to walk. For security reasons, I don't see why pedestrian needs to walk on the side of the street. But since we on this side, the security existing where the X is, that's coming out. So some of those bollards along here is going to be reused, as I heard.
Yeah, they're going to go around
and they're going to be reused. So how many new ones that you're going to be installed, or most of them is going to be reused to the new location?
I think that we're going to need to buy 6 new ones.
6 new ones?
Yeah.
Okay. Could you go to one of the last slide that had the perspective drawing that you showed, the last slide? I have a comment on that one. The new drawing showing the new security. The last slide.
Maurice, can you advance?
Yeah, go advance. Yeah, keep going. Right, yeah. Yeah, right there. I have a question. On both sides of the security, is this an open that you just walk right in? There's nothing.
No, it's locked and secure.
Huh?
It's locked and secure.
Okay, so it's no open right there, because I'm not looking straight at that door right there, am I?
Well, the post is going to be 6 feet away from the door. So
okay. I'm zooming in right now. So from, the last open windows, 2 windows right there, and then you have an opening, then I'm seeing this new door. That's not a gap right there. You walk right in, is it?
Well, the hope is that someone can't just walk right there. There's going to be 3 officers on the post. And it's locked. They would have to allow someone.
Okay, so there is something there that someone just can't walk right in.
Well, I mean, somebody could get by them, by the officers.
Okay, so how's that secure if someone could just walk right in there?
Well, no, the door is locked.
Not the
door
door, not the glass door. I'm talking about that gap right there. On the
Yeah, the gap, somebody can walk in, but you can't do anything beyond. It's all glass.
It's all. I'm hearing some static, and I don't know. Let me turn my. Wait a minute. Let me turn my mic off.
Okay.
Repeat that, and then I'm gonna turn my mic off. Repeat that.
All right. If I'm understanding your question correctly, there's a gap between the booth and the building of about 6 feet minimally that will allow somebody to get between the booth and the building so that they can access that door. Now, technically speaking, somebody could just walk through the gap, but they can't get into the booth or the building without an officer allowing them in. And that officer post and 24 hours a day. So.
Okay, I understand now, because I heard you earlier saying that employees can go through there too, right? So that's
the plan. That would be the plan when we return to the bank. We don't want people. We're trying to minimize stacking for entering the building, so it might be temporary. You know, for social distancing and whatnot, we want to keep you know, people separated when they're coming into the building. But that's the thought of it being an employee entry is more potential in the future.
Now, the top part of the new structure, how far is it going into the recess to the new door? Or is it stopping at the face of the existing structure stone, the granite stone? Is it going to recess in?
The connection is only 6 feet wide. It's only over the door, and it connects above the door to the metal. And the metal behind the metal is concrete block, solid grouted. So there's not going to be any issue about structural issues.
And this is a question for the existing door that was there. Was the door that you're going to replace, is it the original door of the building that was built originally? It's not? Okay.
No, these actually used to be entries for cars. Like that was a open air delivery court behind the historic Watchman Tower. So in the 90s, they filled all that in. So that entry door that this post is touching is actually a 90s renovation.
So it's not a pair door. Is it like a roller door, or it's not a pair door? Is it? What I'm looking at.
It's a pair of doors. Currently, they're solid. We're looking to replace them with have some bullet resistant vision glass so that you can see in.
The reason why I'm asking this question is I'm just wondering, have you thought about reusing existing and just adding glazing into it?
Because of bullet resistant requirements, you can't do that. You know, it has to be manufactured that way in the shop. But the new ones will match. It's not a historic metal. They still make it. So.
Could you repeat that again? To my question. So you have looked at using those existing door and add glazing in, what you're trying to duplicate?
No, we haven't. It's difficult to retrofit an existing door with bullet resistant glass and guarantee that it's bullet resistant.
Understood. All right, thank you.
Other questions or comments from the commission? Other questions or comments from the commission? I guess I'll just ask my one question here. I'm sorry if I missed this and you said it earlier. With the removal of the current post, does that touch the building at all? Is there any stone
No, it
restoration?
doesn't.
Okay, so it
No.
sits on independent, so it's really just sidewalk repair that's needed when that's removed?
Correct.
Okay. All right, well, that was the only question I had. Oh, I guess I apologize. One additional question. You're adding the additional parapet, let's say, on top of the booth, or say, I'll ask that differently. Why are you adding the additional parapet on top of the booth?
So
I'm
that it
just looking at the, oh, go ahead.
So that it matches the one that's staying.
Got it. Have you thought of recessing that some so that it relates more to the design of the historical one that is directly adjacent versus the one that's down a few hundred feet?
Recessing, I'm not sure if I understand.
Well, looking at the picture on the right on the screen versus the historical booth that you can see better in the picture to the left, the historical one looks like the parapet steps back. It has almost like a crown at the cornice versus a straight monolithic cornice. So I would encourage you to look at the detailing of the historical one since these are sitting so close to see if they're, if recessing that double parapet would could help it relate to what it's sitting next to, not as much the one that's down the building elevation.
I know we're limited by what the manufacturer provides as options, but if I'm understanding, you're saying that maybe the two banding elements aren't in the same plane, that maybe one pops out. So
Correct.
it's more cornice. Okay. I can ask. I don't know if that's possible, but
It would just relate to the crown of the existing historical booth itself.
Sure. And just so you know, the connection is not a two-tier element, it's a single. So that I know it's a dark image, but the two-tier element is just the booth. The connection into the recess entry door is a single element.
Okay, that is hard to understand from the rendering.
Again, we're trying to separate this booth from the building as much as possible. We know it's not, we don't want it to be compared to the historic architecture.
Understand and appreciate that. Other questions or comments from the commission, or would someone like to put forward a motion?
I make a motion.
Go ahead.
I move the motion is to accept the presentation as presented. Check with the company, as Madam Chair mentioned, and checking with the banding to see if it can, if you can match with the building, if you can. And share it with staff. And that's what I have. I don't have no problem with the pedestrian as is. As I mentioned before, the pedestrian can walk on the opposite side of the street for security reason. But that's my motion, presented as presented, and just check with the banding as Madam Chair mentioned and share it with staff.
Okay.
Thank you. So do we have a second?
This is Alan, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Dyer. Any further discussion? No? Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Kalikia,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trott,
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Thank you. We
Thank
look
you,
forward to
everybody.
seeing this project go forward.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our next applicant located at 4005 Woodbine Avenue, renovation and addition. The applicant, please unmute your mic, announce yourself, and tell us about your project.
Alan Fodor. I'm the architect for this project, and I'll take you on a walk through it. This is 4005 Woodbine Avenue. It's located between West 38th Street and West 40th Street from Garrett Morgan School. It's the home of John and Leslie Nineber. It's a 1.5-story wood frame structure with white vinyl windows and beige vinyl siding. The house area. It's a simple workers' cottage with no significant architectural detail. I met the Ninebers back in 2000 what to do about the stair to the second floor. Not only was it steep, but when you got near the top, the opening in the second floor would not permit you to stand fully erect. You had to crawl. That point was less than 6 feet. Please back up one slide. No, go backwards. One more backwards. Okay. This is the east that was added in order to get sufficient height in the bathroom to be able to have a shower. We looked at possibilities of adding a stairwell along this east side. The face of the project you are about to see will be approximately halfway between the wall and the canopy above the side door. You can go to the next slide, please. As time went by, John experienced some damage to his car that was parked on Woodbine and began to think he would like to have a garage. The problem was that the north, east, and south yards were only about 8 feet. The was too small. But east of John's lot was a vacant lot that was owned by John was able to strike a deal and purchase 12 feet of that vacant lot. He then had an east side yard of 20 feet, a lot split and with the engineer. A recent occurrence that has also prompted this project was the birth of John and Leslie's first child. Both John and Leslie work out of their home and each requires a separate office. More space is necessary for those activities, plus room for the kid. Adding a stairwell along the east side, which will give access to both the second floor and the basement. Next, we have placed the addition so the south elevation is coplanar with the existing house. This will allow the original house to be the dominant element as seen from the street. At the second floor level is a master bedroom with a walk-in closet and a master bath. A glassed-in sitting area looks out on a small deck that is accessed from the bedroom or from the stair landing. It'll have traffic-bearing waterproof surface, and railings will be black steel pipe with aircraft cable horizontals. Next slide, please. The addition will be clad with board and batten siding and trimmed with trim will be painted. Windows will be white vinyl windows, and doors will be white clad wood doors. Glass will be low E insulating glass units. We are using a hip roof on the addition, which relates to the roof form of the existing house and visually ties them together, yet recedes from the house, thereby historic house. Shingles on both roofs will match, probably a light gray asphalt shingle. There will be a skylight placed on the hip end for more natural light in the bedroom. The white vinyl windows in the existing house are still very serviceable and will remain. The vinyl siding will be removed. The original siding will be patched, repaired, or replaced. The entire house will be painted. While there are several houses on Woodbine with garages, they are located in very deep rear yards, so the garage doors are only slightly visible from the street. The garage door in our project will be about 8. To avoid the visual issues of garage doors in historic districts, we have chosen to use a flush mount door. Please go to the next slide. And let's go to the next slide. This particular door is made by a door company, though there are other manufacturers. Cleverly designed hardware allows the door to be mounted flush with the face of the wall, and whatever siding is being used on the wall can be applied directly to the door. When closed, the door is virtually invisible. No, forward. Next. Good. The face of the addition has been located well back from the face of the house. The deck, too, has been set back from the face of the house, allowing as much visible. An aircraft cable railing is quite transparent. Windows in the garage wall help to reduce the mass of the wall and give a sense of human scale. Next slide, please. This is the south elevation, but I really don't have any comments. It's just the board and batten siding and the existing siding on the house. Next slide, please. Colors will be from the Sherwin-Williams Historic Color Palette. The body color for the house will be Downing Slate, and the trim will be Renwick Heather. The body color and the trim will be Downing Slate. The use of the two colors will contrast the house and the addition, yet tie them together. The colors are of similar tonal value and contrast. Next slide, please. Walking or driving east on Woodbine affords a good view of the historic house in all its simplicity. The vinyl siding has been removed and the original siding repaired or replaced, including gable trim and other trim. A lightweight porch is visible beyond the house, as well as, please. When you are in front, the house is dominant and the roof of the addition recedes to the south. Colors are harmonious, but the old and new stand out due to the color change. Next slide. As you get to the east property line and look, the peak of the house takes the dominant role again, and the roof of the addition fades away to the south. One more slide, please. Looking west on Woodbine of the addition, while the gable roof on the house still reads as a primary element of the assembly. The windows in the garage, the verticality of the board and batten siding on the addition works well with the horizontality of the clapboard siding on the house. That completes my.
Yeah, just so that, I don't know if anybody else is having the same audio problems with this presenter, but he keeps cutting in and out. I know that Michelle Anderson just pointed that out. So I just wanted to raise that issue that some of what you've said has been completely missed.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, I think as we go through, if there's, you can understand maybe some of the questions. So we will cover it now for anything that we missed. So thank you for the presentation. Is there feedback from the local committee?
Hi. Hello. Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. Thank you for having me. Donna Gregonis from Ohio City Incorporated, the Neighborhood Development Director. So local committee commented that the proposed flushwood garage door with wood battens was very creative, and they approved this as presented unanimously. So thank you.
Thank you. And we'll open up the floor to questions or comments from the commission. Go ahead, Ms. Bailey.
Yes, I was also having problem hearing as well. I like the design as well too. I just had some question on the door, what type of material on the front door that look yellow? Is that the actual color that the architect wants? And I'm just questioning the horizontal position of the window. That's the only thing that's puzzling me. But what type of door material that is, and as well as the one on the balcony part at the top, or is that all glass?
Are you referring to the garage door?
Yeah, is that bronze? Yeah, you were breaking. I couldn't hear what you were saying.
The garage door is the same material as the siding on the house. It'll be board and batten siding, just like the rest of the wall that it is in.
I think she might be. Oh, go ahead.
The doors upstairs will be glass doors. Yes.
Is the main front door that in this rendering appears yellow, is that the original door that is a wood door painted, or is this another material?
That is the existing door that that is on the house. Excuse me, currently. Right now, we're planning on painting it the color. I'm not sure exactly what.
Oh, okay, so that's the existing door. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Also, the fencing, the brick fencing, is that new, or what's the height of the brick?
The brick. There is no new brick on this addition. The piers that you see out front are there already.
Okay. And also, do you have lighting on the house? On the front and the around the building? Do you have a light fixture on the building?
There is a light fixture on by the front porch, and we'll probably have some recessed lighting above the driveway on the underside of the deck, and most likely some kind of lighting on the deck. We haven't figured out exactly what yet.
And I'm really impressed with the door, the flush mount, how you hit the door. I really like that concept, the garage door.
It certainly helps when you're in the historic district.
Ms. Anderson, I believe you were next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really overall like the creative solution you came up with for this addition. You know, I think it definitely maintains the prominence of the original house. I have a couple questions. You mentioned there were vinyl windows, or is that like in the back or on the side or something where it's not visible?
The windows in the house are existing vinyl windows. All of them are white vinyl windows.
And there's no plans to replace them with the more historically correct window?
First of all, they are still in serviceable condition. They're weather tight. And secondly, the budget can't afford it.
Okay. I have two concerns. They're not huge. You know, the board and batten signing is, you know, historically appropriate, but you don't see a lot of it in this area. And I wanted to know, what is the material of the board and batten siding?
I'm sorry, you faded what?
Oh, I'm sorry. What is the material of the board and batten siding?
It's a plywood, first of all, either wood or composite strips about 3/4 of an inch thick by 1.5 inches wide and set about 12 inches apart.
Okay, so this is not like a hardy board, it's a plywood, painted plywood?
I'm sorry, you faded again, please.
Sorry, my turn, right? So this is a painted plywood, it's not like a hardy board or?
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm not loving the board and batten siding. I know it's a historically appropriate use, but it's not common in this area. And I feel like you could probably just continue with clapboard because the addition is differentiated from the original house, you know, with the roof line, with the hip roof, as well as the differentiation in the foundation. You know, the foundation, of course, is higher on the original house.
We looked at it both ways. We looked at it as the clapboard siding. My client prefers board and batten.
And I'm a little concerned about the painted plywood in this area because we do have a lot of moisture and a lot of rain, a lot of humidity.
Well, the only thing I can tell you is I renovated the house back in 2002 and is exactly as we're going to use it here. And in that time, I've had absolutely no deterioration of it. It's finally gotten to a point after 18 years of needing another coat of paint, but it has weathered very well in this particular.
Do you recall if you originally painted it with an oil based paint or a, you know, a latex or?
It was a latex based paint.
Okay. All right, well, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions or comments from the commission? I guess I'll make my comments right now. Did you look at placing a window on the front elevation into the garage versus the side elevation of the garage? I guess it would be more into the stairwell to break up the board and batten on the front elevation. I appreciate that you've hidden the garage door, but it looks fairly, you know, it looks like a very monolithic plane because of its proportions between the porch and the ground.
I suppose that would be possible. If we went back to the floor plan, you'll find that right behind this wall is a closet, which is at the top of the basement stairs. So it's kind of a coat closet that we're putting in to. So yeah, you could put a window there, and might be worthwhile taking a look at.
I'd encourage you to take a look at it. It would just break up that, you know, the monotony of the large plane on the front elevation or on the street elevation of that board and batten. Also related to the doors on the second floor, are those a composite material door?
The glass doors upstairs would probably be like an aluminum clad wood.
Okay. And if you're doing wood in many other places, you might want to look in a composite that could be painted. And I'd encourage you to paint them the trim or look at painting them the trim color. You know, right now, white is not a dominant color within your overall composition, but because of using these doors, they become more dominant, where maybe if you could paint them to match the trim color, they would just recede and obviously give you the vision glazing, but not really stand out as a design feature. And then
Look at that.
I think, yeah, just the horizontal windows on, the side of the garage do feel a little awkward in relationship to the rest of the house composition. Everything else has a double hung, at a certain head height. If you're going to maintain them, I wonder if it would make sense to pull them up in, height so that they still give you the light within the garage, but relate more to the head height of the rest of the house.
Well, the sill of the window is 6 feet up.
Oh. They just seem like they don't relate. That doesn't relate as much to the rest of the architecture of the existing house or your addition.
I understand, but then again, I go and look at my own house. I live on West 30th Street, right behind Hex Cafe, and on my north wall there are 4 on here, where all the rest of the windows in my house are double hungs. So it's unique to the area.
Understand, yeah, but obviously the thoughtfulness of the craftsman also helps make sure that they are appropriately placed. So I would just take a look at those windows and see if there might be a better option that relates to the architecture, and if not, would an alternate height make sense so that it relates to the windows that are within the rest of the house.
Okay.
Other questions or comments from the commission, or would someone like to put forward a vote or a motion? Sorry.
I want to make a comment. For the upper railing, what type of material that is? The second floor railing that we're looking at in this picture? In the height? What?
The
second floor railing, is that metal? And back to Miss Anderson's comments on the siding, clad wooden for your siding. Is it pre-treated wood?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand that.
Back to Miss Anderson's comment on your wood.
Yes.
Your clad, is it pre-treated? The protection against since you're not using hardwood board for siding, is your wood protected?
The answer is
yeah. Is it pre-treated wood?
No, the plywood that we will be using is called MDO plywood. It is a waterproof plywood sign making for exterior signs. The battens that we put on, we're probably going to use a composite material. So the composite material.
So it does have some form of something against the weather.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. I would like to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I would like to move the motion as to accept the presentation motion as presented with the colors, the second floor window to the side and second floor. To look at the color for the second floor door next to the railing, the glass, to take a look at that. All this to be presented to the staff. Most of us just show the colors to the staff, especially the materials, and also share with the staff the cut sheet for the flush mount garage door, so they can have that information, and also the light fixture, because I didn't see that in your presentation, and more information on your new window detail, the material and stuff to staff.
So we have a motion with the conditions of looking at the colors of the second floor doors, submitting materials of the railing, and I missed the last, Miss Bailey.
The light fixture,
Oh, and the light fixtures.
and also, just share information on the, cut sheet for the flush mount garage to staff.
Okay, so we have a motion with the following, those conditions. Do we have a second?
Ms. Buck. Adrian, can you mute your microphone? Thank you. Yeah, I will second that motion with the addition of consideration of adding either a clear story or some kind of window on the face of the new addition to the garage door to study the addition of a window on that plane.
Thank you for that addition. Do you accept that addition, Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the project? All right, Mr. Pettit, could you please call roll and announce the results?
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchio,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trot.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing your project move forward. We'll move on to our next applicant, located at 1527 West 28th Street, renovation and addition. Could the presenter please unmute your microphone, state your name, and tell us about your project.
Hi, my name is Antonia Marinucci. I am the architect for this project, 1527 West 28th Street. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we
Okay,
can.
great.
Thank you.
So what you have in front of you is the existing conditions. It is a 1.5 story century home in Ohio City, a little cottage. And these are the existing conditions. The scope of work is going to be a proposed addition to the second story and modification to the existing roof line in the back 2/3 of the house and this shedded rear portion of the home that you can see in the photos. Next slide, please. So in historic research for the property, it appears that the front of the home and the side porch have not changed from a massing perspective since the 1880s. The rear of the property seems to have seen a few different iterations of buildings on the site. And it seems that the very rear of the house where has maybe seen a couple modifications as well at the back entry. So today's site plan can be viewed on the lower left side. We will be, like as I said, modifying the roof line of the back 2/3 of the house, removing a small rear entry vestibule, adding square footage to the existing floor, the existing footprint on the second floor. So effectively, we are the second floor currently does not have does not occupy the entire floor plate of the house. So we're just going to be building above existing first floor plate in the back. Next slide, please. So here's a little massing study that we took to illustrate the modification. The goal is to, on the main gable, maintain the ridge line and just create a almost dormer effect, enlarged dormer effect at the rear of the home. And we will also be proposing a extension of that roof, the porch roof, over that rear portion of the home as well. But the footprint of the house remains the same. We are not proposing any expansion to the footprint. Actually reducing it a little bit with that vestibule removal. Next slide, please. So here's demo plans. So you can see that the on the existing second floor, that roof plane at the plan rear is what we will be expanding into. Next slide, please. And here's the proposed work plan. Some goals of the renovation from the interior perspective were to add a main bedroom suite. The owners of the home are a young couple. They've been in the house for, I believe, 6 or 7 years and are hoping to stay longer term, expand their family, and wanted to make the necessary changes in order to accommodate that. So one of the big moves too that was an impetus for the overall renovation was reorienting the staircase. The current stairs are very narrow, very steep, and we wanted to reorient them to provide more longevity in the house and a lot more comfortable living environment for them. We're also adding a hall bath and some closet space to that new bedroom suite at the rear. Next slide, please. So here's a look at the existing roof line. Again, we're maintaining that ridge line of the main gable and just kind of taking like an expanded dormer approach, going from a 12-7 slope to a 12-3 slope at the rear and extending the roof line at the porch level to that little first floor space that will become their mud and laundry room where the skylights are shown. Next slide, please. So this is the top 2 elevations are existing. The west elevation and the south elevation, which are the most important 2. The south elevation is the side elevation, but I wanted to be pretty inclusive about the changes here because of the way the driveways are oriented for this property and the property immediately to the south of it. The south elevation does get quite a bit of visibility. So I wanted to make sure that it was clear what we were trying to achieve between the 2. And from the front, the west elevation, we are proposing a removal of that rear interior window on the porch, but otherwise the porch and all of the windows to the front of the house on these 2 elevations would remain the same. Next slide, please. The east elevation, which is the back of the house, the north elevation. And it's also worth noting that the east and north sides of this house are surrounded by parking lot. The Cleveland Clinic parking lot is to the east, and I believe it's the West 25th Lofts to the north. So they're currently surrounded by parking lot on both of those sides. So here you can see the simplification of the rear, as well as that kind of expanded dormer effect on the north. Next slide, please. So we're really aiming to just match all of the existing finishes. They had the majority of the windows in the house replaced and also the roof replaced, I think, in the last 5 years or so. So our proposal is to just simply match existing. The existing cladding is a wood cladding. It's painted green sprout, Sherwin-Williams. We would continue that in both materiality and color throughout the whole project and in the affected areas. And we are proposing white aluminum clad wood windows. I know obviously that white is not always the preferred, but since they're maintaining so many of the windows that they had recently replaced, we would like to propose to match. They don't plan on changing the overall color scheme. And I think that concludes my presentation. So
Okay, thank you. Feedback from the local committee.
Good morning again, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. Donna Grigonis Bailey with Ohio City Incorporated. At local committee, there were not too many comments, but there was some conversation about the color of the windows. But Tania did explain that since the owners are not changing the existing windows, that it made more sense to keep them white. But it was approved as presented. Thank you.
I'll call you back. I'll call you back in about an hour.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the commission?
Oh, bring some, yeah. Okay. I'll talk to you later.
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Ross. Sorry, go ahead, Ms. Ross.
Could you go back, I think either 1 or 2 slides? Go back 1 slide forward. It's a color slide. Forward. Go back. No. Not go almost toward the end before we went to the material. Right there. Wait. Go back 1. There. Right there. I have a question about the elevation on the upper left. The two upper windows. Are those existing, right?
Correct. The upper left is the existing.
Okay, all right. Okay. Oh. So the roof that you added in below it is new, right? So,
sorry.
I'm just wondering. I guess it's not much we can do about that. Just how it's just the roof line is so close to the bottom of the window. So I'm just wondering how the existing look, or how low. Is it the same height as the window I'm looking at, or in the right of that elevation? Is it the same height?
I'm not sure. I'm a little bit confused. The existing will be removed.
The two windows on the left, even though they're existing, I'm just curious how high it is. It's so close to the roof line, if that's a new roof that you added on there. So I'm just wondering if it's somehow, if there can be somehow the edge of that roof line can be just lowered somehow, so it can be a gap between the bottom of the roof, the window, and the top of the roof edge. It's so
you're looking at the existing?
Yeah, the existing window.
Correct, but all of that will be removed. So that plane.
Wait. Let me turn my microphone off.
Okay. That plane that has those two windows and the entire roof line in front of it, that is the shed roof line, that is all removed. So when we do the addition, we'll be expanding. So the back plane of the house will become flush with the first floor of the house. So those windows in that roof line are the existing condition, but they will no longer be there. The lower left showing the proposed east elevation is the proposed rear facade that will all be along one plane. Does that clarify?
So the one below it is the new one that I'm looking at.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's what I wanted to get understanding. That's all I have for now, but let me keep looking at this. So the shed that you're looking at, that's going to be removed. And what I'm looking at below is what I'm looking at in front.
What you're seeing here is the rear elevation, which is the east, and then the north elevation is the side.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments from the commission? I guess while we wait for others to raise their hand, I guess to build on what Ms. Bailey was saying, it looks like in your proposed elevation for the north, it looks like you have eliminated some of your existing windows. I think the one thing that I'm struggling with is just the variety of different sizes and placements of all the windows on both your north and east elevation. I'm assuming it all relates to your interior planning, but it just seems like you have removed a double hung in your first floor, a double hung, two double hungs from your first floor, and replaced it with a new horizontal window in the center of your north elevation. I guess I would ask if there's the ability just to go to like a double hung for that location, so that you start to get one language across the these two facades versus two, and or rather than doing fixed units in your kitchen on your east elevation, if you explore doing like a double hung there.
Thanks. That is definitely great feedback. Although there's a lot of variety of windows in the existing home, as you can see in some of the existing proposals. So we didn't have a ton of continuous language here. The house is, as we know, like Tim Barrett thinks we think it's pre-Civil War. It's really old, the original house, but it must have had a significant renovation or modification closer to the mid-century mark in the 30s or 40s. And they seem to have modified some of the windows at that point, and we didn't, and it resulted in kind of this disjointed existing condition. So the windows in the kitchen are meant to be casement style windows, as well as in the mudroom. The small windows that you see in the upper left of the east elevation are fixed windows that are in the shower, and they're also on the south elevation as well. The larger double hungs are for egress purposes in the bedroom and do match the size and style of the front bedroom egress windows. But definitely noted, and if it's something that the committee feels strongly about, we can certainly modify as long as we're able to comply with egress from a bedroom standpoint. I think that they would be open to exploring different window patterns.
So the center window on the north elevation or the double hungs on the north and east elevation are for egress?
The double hungs on the north and east are the new proposed main bedroom. So those would need to, at least one would need to comply with egress, but in my mind, it makes sense to maintain consistency with those. The one that you're referring to in the middle of the elevation, and the reason we had to remove the two in the middle of the north elevation is because that's where the reoriented staircase is going. So the elongated horizontal window is attempting to kind of have the same language as the horizontal window you see that's fixed towards the front of the house, but it is at the stair landing, which is at a higher elevation between those two floor plates.
Yeah, even the simplicity of just trying to take that to a double hung, I think would also help just, you know, sort of unify the old house and the new and give some consistency and maybe undo some things that were done in the past that probably shouldn't have done.
That's more than fine, and I think my clients would be agreeable to that.
Okay. Other questions or comments from the commission?
Also back to the existing and the proposed, I noticed that unless there's another roof edge, I noticed there's two roof edges. At the proposed one, it has one roof edge at the bottom, whereas the original at the top has two. So could you explain what's the difference between the two?
Sure. Carl, can you go back to the very first slide?
Miss Bailey, can you mute your mic, please?
Oh, okay.
Carl, if you could go back to the first slide that shows the existing photos of the rear, I think that might help clarify. The back of the house currently is a little bit of a mismatch of things going on, and I think that's what's causing the confusion at the elevation level. Keep going. There we go. So see along the bottom how there's that back entry. If you look at the rear photos, there is this small kind of entry vestibule that has an extended pediment over it. And we are going to be taking that off, as well as the interior space at that location. It's a rear entry vestibule and a closet that's serving the existing bedroom that will become the mudroom. Neither are conditioned or firmly integrated to the house currently. They were an add-on. You can tell from the historic mapping that those had both been added post, early 1900s. So they just were never fully integrated in the home, and we have no use for them in the new plan. So in an attempt to simplify this rear massing, all of that will come off. And that's what's kind of causing the conglomeration of roof lines. You can see in that right east photo on the lower right-hand side that the shed roof actually has a steep shed, and then it transitions to like a nearly flat shed profile at that bump out. That's going to all come off. I hope that helps clarify. It's an odd.
Well, actually, I was talking about the higher house roof pitch. It had two edges. I see that you see the black one, and then you see the roof edge, which is the white part. So it's the white edge of the roof, and then you have the roof probably with the asphalt. So I'm talking about those two showing on your drawing. So that's I'm talking about the higher one, not the shed one.
Can you go back to the proposed elevations, Carl? Okay. So Ms. Bailey, are you referring to the proposed? The proposed is that we're going to maintain that 12-7 gable at the front, and then
Yeah, I was looking at the existing left one at the top, the higher pitch where the chimney is, and you have two double lines at the top and then one at the bottom. You have one line. So I was talking about that.
Are you talking about the profile of the roof line?
She's saying the wood detailing of the profile that you have a, and I'm at a loss for the exact word, but a finished board below your ridge and your roof line that
like a
is
rake
not
board.
shown. A rake board, thank you. That's not shown within your proposed elevations.
Let me verify what's on the front facade. The goal would be to still match the profile on the front facade. So if there is a rake board on the front, then that would grab error on my part.
I think that's where Miss Bailey's going, is that, you know, to
got it
with your modifications, make sure you're matching the profiles at all corners and roof lines. Correct, Miss Bailey? Yes. Okay. I can read lips through the mute button.
Okay, I'm looking at the proposed front facade. There is a small rake board. So yes, I can modify that when I go to submit for the permit set, that we would make sure to maintain the profile of the front gable at the rear modification. Also to note, there are no corner boards currently on the home. The wood cladding miters at the corners, which is a little bit odd for some of the homes in the neighborhood, but we're proposing to maintain no corner boards to be consistent with that as well.
Perfect.
So after you remove the shed, the door down at the proposal one, that's a new door, right? Or that's already, okay. So what type of door that is, or what material?
It would be a fiberglass half-light door. Painted white to match the rest of the trim work in the windows on the house.
Other questions, Ms. Bailey, or should we open to others?
No, that's it. No.
Okay. Other questions or comments from commission members? I guess I appreciate your sensitivity to the simplicity of this structure, and trying to expand and meet the program, but doing it modestly and especially recessing it far back enough that it's not as apparent on the street front. So those are my only comments. If there are no other comments by other commission members, would someone like to put forward a motion?
I'm making a motion, and I understand that you're trying to, for the owner to add what you mentioned earlier, to widen the hallway, to add bathrooms and the staircases near us, but so they can stay in their home a little longer. So I make a motion to move the accept the presentation as presented, and as Madam Chair mentioned, the elevation we just looked at. Just if you have any more information on the windows, just share that in regards to like position, double hung or fixed. Just study that a little more and share that with staff. I understand that the local design review, but you're trying to match the color that's already there, that's white. I don't have any issue because that's what you're matching. But just share that information. But look at the windows more and share that with staff. That's all I have, unless I missed something. And if you have any lights or anything lighting, just share that too.
Okay, thank you. So we have the motion with the conditions. Do we have a second?
This is Michelle Anderson. I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Further discussion? Right. Let's call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchia,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trot.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank
Thank
you all.
you. We look forward to seeing your projects continue on. So that concludes our certificates of appropriateness for today. We do have one design review committee appointment. I do have to step out here in about 4 or 5 minutes for another city meeting. So we can start the presentation, but if it extends a little bit more, Giancarlo, I'll need you to complete the rest of the meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Mr. Pettit, you would like to tell us about the new candidate?
Yes, I'll be as brief as I can. We have a new appointment for the Franklin West Clinton Design Review Committee. Katandra Noy, I believe she was with us earlier in the meeting, but she had to leave early. I've shared her resume and her letter of intent with the commission, and you can reference that at your leisure if you haven't already. She has a degree in urban planning from Cleveland State University. She has an extensive resume it looks like it's in transportation planning. She's currently employed with Fairfax Renaissance Development Corporation. Her letter states very clearly her interest in historic preservation. She is a homeowner on West Clinton Avenue, so she lives in the district. She says that she's committed to the mission of the Franklin West Clinton Design Review Committee because I feel that the preservation of our historic structures is a valuable gift to subsequent generations. I think she has a great background. I think she'll make a great member of the committee. So it's up to the commission today to approve the proposed appointment.
Thank you. Is there questions or comments from the commission regarding the proposed appointment? No?
Yes, I have comments.
Go ahead.
I'm curious, after looking at the resume, at her experience in historical districts or historical renovations. If she could, is she there now? Is she available?
She had to leave the meeting early, so she couldn't stay for the end.
Well, that's one of the issues I have. I think, I mean, I don't have an issue approving her, but I would like to condition that to her attending maybe 3 or 4 meetings of landmarks so that she can be more aware of what we do as an organization, as a group. I think one of my concerns is that there are projects that come before landmarks that may not be properly reviewed by the neighborhood groups. And I think having more experience in our field could be helpful.
I think that's a good suggestion. I know she states that some of her responsibilities with Fairfax involve maintaining the historic fabric of the neighborhood over there. I'd also like to point out that tomorrow, the City Planning Commission is holding its biannual Design Review Committee training session. So she will be part of that. But I do think it's not a bad idea to invite her to attend future Landmarks Commission meetings.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there questions or comments? Any additional questions or comments, or would someone like to put forward a motion for, is it a motion for appointment, Don?
I have a question. I was just wondering if there's any, criteria or basic loose guidelines that we have for appointing people to the local design review committees. Because I agree, and that's not to say, it might just be the way she wrote it, but there wasn't a lot of strong emphasis on background in renovation, historic preservation, design, that kind of thing.
Sorry. We don't always require a background in historic preservation. We like a diversity of members on our committees, whether they're design professionals or residents or property owners. We do expect them to have an interest in historic preservation. She has a background in urban planning, and I would hope some of that included historic preservation in terms of her studies. These are volunteer boards. We do our best to staff them with people who are interested and engaged, and that they at least reside or own property in the historic districts. So those are our general guidelines. We don't expect everyone to be an architect or a preservationist, but in my opinion, having a background in urban studies is a pretty good background to start with. So those are the general things that we look at when we look at new members.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
So having said that, I put forth a motion for approval with the conditions that we mentioned.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, it's Bob Strickland. I just raised my hand, and I'll put forth a motion to accept the appointment of the candidate for the Franklin West Clinton Historic District.
This is Alan. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll call the roll. Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Kalikia?
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer?
Yes.
Mr. Strickland?
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik?
Yes.
Ms. Trott has left us. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We don't have any other business. I guess my only staff report is to let you know that last week, the Board of Zoning Appeals voted to ratify their decision about the Landmarks Commission regarding the demolition of 4500 Lorraine Avenue. The vote was unanimous. So their overruling of our decision has been ratified. I think the only recourse there is now is if someone who has standing would have to appeal to the Court of Common Pleas.
Don,
I'm sorry.
this is a bit of an aside,
Yes.
but my understanding is that the applicant wants the building to be torn down because it's a safety hazard and an imminent threat to people and lives in the area. I drove by yesterday and the barber shop was open.
Yeah, that's always been something that kind of undercuts their argument, although they have made efforts to remove the barber, and he's refused to date, he's refused to relocate.
You know, I'm not an attorney. I'm certainly not a real estate attorney, but my understanding is it's a lot easier to get a commercial tenant out of a place than even a residential tenant. So I don't totally buy that.
I don't either, but I'm not sure what we can do at this point. You know, the board listened to both of our statements, the applicants and mine, and I think they already had their mind made up. And so there wasn't any additional discussion or testimony at that meeting.
Well, I greatly appreciate all your efforts, Don. You know, it's disheartening, but I do appreciate all your hard work on this.
Well, thank you. I wish we had
agree
a
with that,
better
Don.
outcome.
We fought a good battle. That's for sure.
Can't win them all, Don. But Tom, I take it, was not available for the meeting?
He was available, he was at the meeting, but the board would not hear any additional testimony. Even one of the board members who wasn't part of the original vote was willing to speak, I think, in favor of giving the building another chance. But because he wasn't at the first meeting, he did not vote or was not allowed to add testimony.
I don't understand the purpose of the second hearing then, if they didn't allow any additional testimony.
I think
Self and the applicant.
it was determined by the secretary that only the applicant and myself would be allowed to speak to the ratification. They would have had to allow a rehearing in order to allow more testimony. I still think it's, you know, it would have been critical to our case had the chief building official been allowed to, you know, to share his comments with the board.
Is there anything that we need to do proactively to try to avoid a similar circumstance?
I don't know what the next steps are.
I think we've probably lost this one. I'm just wondering if there's anything that we need to do procedurally to try to avoid this situation in the future.
It's like we're adjourned, or are we adjourned? The only other thing I would add is that on Tuesday, City Council begins budget hearings, and we will be up probably on Tuesday afternoon, and I've asked the chair to attend. But if anyone else is interested in attending, let me know.
Is that a virtual meeting or in person?
It's a virtual meeting. We haven't received a link yet. Alan, I don't know when that will be sent out, but it will be a virtual meeting.
Distribute that link so that we might be included.
Don, you'll have the link soon. I think Landmarks is scheduled for the very end of the day. So it'll be sometime in the probably mid-afternoon.
Okay. I'll share the link with commission members if any of you are interested in it.
Yes, please do.
Okay, thank you. Unless there's anything else, I think we're finished.
Don, this is Stu.
Yeah.
I have been given some thought in answer to Bob Strickland's discussion. I mean, I was thinking about this before, about what we can do to avoid the situation in the future, particularly in cases where we think